Welcome back to the Nourished CEO podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, and today's episode is all about what your birthday actually tells you about how to build your business. So, it is my birthday the day this comes out. I am turning 39, or as my husband says, 30 fine, and I wanted to do something a little bit different for this episode. I feel like every year it's my birthday, I try to get into like a reflective headspace where I'm thinking about the next year and where I want to go. And it's funny because I feel like this is the time of year where I really feel like things hit the ground running. I know a lot of times people can say, oh, it's a new year in January, and that's when we're all supposed to be like, diving into our goals. But for me, it's like I feel like the first quarter of the year is really the warm up, and then Q2 is like, let's go. So I want to talk about some stuff that I have been digging into that has like completely reframed how I think about my business, myself, even, and then how I approach my work with clients. And before we get into the topic for today, which is really talking about how the position of the stars and the planets and all the things in the universe, how the position of all that when you were born actually can tell us a lot about how you were created and what that means for the way that you approach business, the way that you set up your life to support your business, and the way you set up your business to support your life. All of that stuff can be informed, not totally guided by, but informed by your birth chart. So, I want to preface this with the understanding that for a very long time, I was either just like totally massively skeptical of this as a concept or just kind of like neutral. I was like, whatever, not really something I'm into, not my thing. As a Christian, I feel like the whole astrology, zodiac thing can be such a hot topic as far as like what people think about it, which is ironic because a lot of Christians are like totally fine with the Enneagram, which is like pretty sketchy if you look at its background, but I digress. I I don't even know what got me into it this year. I think I've just been seeing a lot more content about it, mostly with like people talking about the fire horse stuff. And I don't, honestly, I could not tell you exactly when or where I started looking into this stuff. But the thing that really just utterly shocked me was when I took my birth chart information and started using AI, specifically Claude, to dig into it. I don't think I would have ever been able to really use this information effectively without AI. So I think it was just like the convergence of me seeing people talk about it more, me having this really powerful tool, me being in this very just transformative state in my own life and my own business where I was really questioning everything I had been taught, questioning, how am I approaching things? Is this even a good fit for me? And I've always been into personality psychology and that kind of thing. My undergrad degree was actually in personality psychology. So, this idea of like studying the personality has always been of interest to me for like decades at this point. But I never really gave any stock to the whole birth chart thing because I thought it was not the version of woo that I'm super into. And honestly, I don't really know what changed my perspective on it. Truly, I think the main thing that changed my perspective is that I just looked at it and saw, holy cow, this is actually incredibly scarily accurate. And then I kept testing it. So not only did I test it against myself, but I also tested it against my family, like my husband, my kids. I tested it against clients and friends. So basically, I'm like looking at all these different people's birth charts and running it through Claude and looking at what the patterns say. And honestly, just being repeatedly shocked by the accuracy. And for me, it really just kept confirming something that I already knew I could sense about people, but I didn't always have the language for. And I think I was kind of questioning whether it was really something I was accurate about. So, this episode is not coming from a place of, oh, I've always been into this or that I've studied it really deeply. I'm really just scratching the surface of it right now, but it's basically coming from somebody who had a lot of skepticism around it, happened to test it to just see, like, what is this stuff talking about? And is this even remotely helpful? And then the level of clarity and accuracy that I found was just something that I couldn't ignore. Just in case it's not clear, I am not an astrologist. I don't pretend to have the level of understanding or depth of insight that somebody who has really studied that stuff for a long time does. So I definitely don't want to present myself as that. I also definitely do not believe in predictive astrology. I'm not here to say, oh, Mercury's in retrograde and that's why you didn't make sales. Like, I think there's a lot of people who will use this kind of stuff to try to predict the future or try to like make excuses for why they can't do something. And I don't actually think that's an appropriate use of it from a spiritual perspective. So this is not about me like turning into an astrologist or me saying, "Oh, you're going to like predict the entire future of your life with the stars." Like I don't think that that's helpful. But what I am actually talking about is pattern recognition. And this is like I said, this is just my thoughts about this topic. I'm very open to being wrong, but from what I understand, humans have been studying the relationship between planetary positions, whether that's at birth or currently, and have been looking at how that influences people's behavior, people's personalities. They've been looking at this stuff for thousands of years across many different cultures. So it's not like one guy that invented this stuff, right? Like I'm always a little skeptical when it's like one person came up with something. Even things like human design, I'm like, I feel like this is like one person's thought about this. So whenever it is like I have to trust one person's accuracy, I am always very skeptical. But then when I look at, okay, multiple people across multiple generations, across multiple cultures, that's where we're starting to see some patterns here. And it's like, maybe this is something worth looking at. So, what has come up as I've been looking at this and using AI to look for patterns, which honestly, I find for me, things like, I mean, I love Claude. Claude's really the one that I use. Tools like Claude are so good at pattern analysis with the data that you give them that 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 in combination with this information has been so eye-opening for me because when you look at these patterns without having some spiritual overlay. I mean, I think the spiritual element is that God created the universe and he created us. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to think that there's a connection between what's going on in the universe and what's going on internally. But even if we strip out all the spiritual language, this data is really just clues into your natural wiring, your innate personality, how you're built to operate. And like I said, the accuracy has just been crazy to me. So you do not have to spiritualize any of this for it to be useful. If you don't believe in God, it's just data, right? I think it's like you could look at it as like scientific information. We're just looking at patterns and we're seeing, hey, when this is happening in the stars, this is what we see in people, right? Or if you are looking at it from a Christian perspective, it's like it's not the names of things are not relevant because this is just the words that people put to it. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm talking about the goddess of love. And if I'm talking about Venus, like we don't actually even have to agree with any of that from a spiritual perspective to say, okay, but maybe there is some patterns that people used these words to try to describe it, right? So anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent here. I just like to share this context because I know we have a lot of Christian listeners. I know I have a lot of people that are very science oriented. And I'm not here to make a case for like why this stuff is or isn't true. I'm really just here to share some insight that I've been having because I have never seen information like this that matched my own intuitive assessment of someone's personality ever. Like I've never even seen a personality test do it like this. So that's why I'm so interested in it because for me, being able to identify people's gifts, their challenges, their direction, like it's always been a gift of mine, but I never have seen anything that could help me do it outside of myself or really put more data to it other than just getting to know somebody really well. So now that I can see, okay, this could be a diagnostic tool that can actually give us really clear, specific, helpful information about how a person is wired. that is why I've gotten like hyper fixated on it in the last couple of months. So, your birth chart or natal chart is essentially just a snapshot of where the planets were at the exact moment that you were born. So, ideally, if you have your birth time and location as part of this, it makes it a lot more specific and accurate because the planets move fairly substantially within the course of 24 hours. And like I said, I'm not an expert in this, but there has been thousands of years worth of observation and people studying what happens and what they're seeing in the world when things are going on. I just think there is something to be said for the patterns that people have identified and how that can actually show up in the way that somebody's personality is formed. Now, I don't think this is a perfect system. I don't think this is something that, it's not going to capture your life experience. So if you've had traumatic experiences or, your upbringing, like different things that have happened to you that can inform your personality, it's not going to capture that because this is really just, hey, what was the imprint when you were born, right? But the accuracy is way more than I would have ever expected. And so I think if you're somebody who's like, "Oh, I don't really know about this. I don't think this is true," then I would actually really just challenge you to pull your chart data, go to a site like AstroSeek or AstroChart and just pull the information and run it through Claude or ChatGPT and just see what happens, see what you see. Because at the end of the day, I don't really care what the spiritual side of this is or if there isn't any spiritual side. What I care is, does this tool describe you accurately and does it give you information that can inform how to set up your business and your life so that you are able to make great money, that you're able to protect your own well-being, that you're able to really operate within your gifts and see what maybe your blind spots are or your weak points are, the things that maybe you tend to do that are not helpful, and really just having a complete picture of yourself that can be used to make decisions about where to go in your business. And like I said, I've done this with so many people at this point. I mean, like, not like hundreds, but at least 10 to 15 people that I know personally that I've worked with that either are like deep relationships of mine, like my husband, or friends that I have that I've known for over a decade, or clients that I've been working with that we've already dug into a lot of the stuff that makes them tick. And when I see it come through on these charts and it is so freaking accurate about how they communicate, what their talents are, what I see in them as far as like where they could go to make their business or their life work well for them in a way that is really structured. It's just very exciting to me because I'm like, ooh, this really helps us. It's almost like the cheat code for figuring out what is the best fit for you and not having to spend years and years and years on like learning it the hard way. And it's really a way to speed up the process to create your business and your life in a way that actually matches you. So there's a couple of different things in here that I'm just gonna share my own story because again, this is like I'm not trying to convince anybody what they should do in their business or what they should believe, but for me, going through this journey of really like stripping back my business to say, what should I actually be building and what did I put into place that was only done because I was very trusting of certain people to guide me in a way that would be helpful for my business, and it led me in the wrong direction. I've been telling this story. The last podcast episode was a little bit about that. I don't like it. This is not about throwing anybody under the bus. It's really just about me having this moment where I realize, oh my gosh, everything I've been putting so much time and energy and money into was based on what somebody said, this is the way to do it, and never actually cared, I guess. I don't know. I hate to say they didn't care, but I did not experience any care of that person to say, actually, is this even a good fit for you? Yes, it worked for me. Yes, this is what I'm teaching, but is this actually a good fit for you? And so I've had to do that work myself. And this is where the direction of my business is going in, where I am now wanting to teach other people how to do this for themselves. So I do not want to be the kind of business coach that is like, here's what I did, do what I did, and you'll be successful. I don't think I've ever been like that, but now I'm like allergic to that mentality. So I'm like, we're not doing that and we're not even getting close to that. So what I'm doing now is really helping my clients understand themselves and understand what's best for them so that they can rebuild that self-trust that maybe they lost or that was, never built effectively in the first place, and really be able to make decisions for themselves that match who they are and match what's best for them, and they're not gonna let somebody else steamroll them into thinking that what they're doing is wrong or not, gonna work because it's not it's not coming from them, right? So this is the process I've been going through, and like I said, the birth chart has been incredibly helpful for this process, and I just to a point where I was like, "I cannot believe how helpful this is." So there's a couple of different things that have really stood out to me. One is I've always known myself to be a decisive person. And even with our CEO types assessment, I am a decisive CEO. That is the result I get very clearly. I, in some ways, sometimes make decisions too fast. Sometimes I need to pump the brakes a little bit. But I also, a lot of times, if I make a decision where I'm very clear in my gut that this is the thing that we need to do, or I need to do, or this is the right move, more often than not, it's accurate. And I don't like to sit with things too long because it's easy for me or other people to talk myself out of something I already knew. And if I gave other people too much input into my decisions, there's a lot of decisions, like even who I'm married to now, that may not have happened. And, really important decisions like that, that I know I made the right decision, but other people were very skeptical, right? So for a long time, especially when I was younger, I used to think maybe I'm impulsive, maybe I need to slow down, maybe I need to think things through more carefully. Like so many people questioning my decisions so intensely, and I mean, thank God I was strong enough to like stand up for myself and say, "No, this is what I believe and this is where I'm going." Because like I said, my decisions have ended up being very, very good ones, but there was a long time where I really doubted myself, or I really questioned myself, and I felt like maybe I'm not doing things right. Maybe I should listen to these people. So, what my chart confirmed for me is that immediate knowing is actually how I am designed to reach a correct decision. So, if I'm waiting and deliberating and seeking more input, and I'm just like, thinking, trying to find the right answer by just thinking more, this isn't something that actually makes my decisions better. If anything, it actually makes them worse. And I know there's a lot of other people that have the same situation where people are making them nervous to be like, maybe I should think about this more. Maybe I should deliberate. Maybe I should ask more opinions. And so they're running this decision making process that's not even matched to how they're actually wired and how they make their best decisions. And then they wonder why they feel so stuck or disappointed, or they keep second guessing themselves after the decisions that they make. And then, of course, you're not questioning, oh, maybe I shouldn't have listened to all these people. You're questioning, well, maybe I'm not good at making decisions. And then you lose self trust. So if that's how you're wired, if you're like me and you're like, I just know what I know and I make the decision from a place of knowing and it's the right one, then listening to too many other people can actually pull you off track. So the question for you is, do you need to sleep on things to make decisions and let clarity emerge over time? Or are you like me and you already know, and you're actually just trying to get other people's permission to take action on what you already know to be true? There isn't a right or wrong here. I think that's really important. That's one of the things I've really appreciated about using these birth charts, is that you realize, oh, the way I make decisions is not the way everybody makes decisions. So, I think that can be really helpful in understanding people, understanding your clients, improving your sales process, because you don't expect everybody to make decisions the way you do. But ultimately, if you understand how you make decisions best, that can actually help make sure that you're giving yourself whatever you need to make the right decision, and you're not letting other people's input be something that pulls you off course if other people's input is not part of your best decision making process. So that was a big one, because I realized that one of the reasons why the last few years have been much more difficult for me in business is because I was looking to other people to really have a lot of input in my decisions. And it was like kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the more I was looking for input and I was doing what they were suggesting to do, and the more my business, I mean, we pretty much had like plateaued revenue. So it's not like we started making tons less, but my expenses went up along with my life expenses, having 2 kids, and there was just a lot of struggle that started to happen. And of course, because I wasn't really thinking, "Oh, maybe it's because I'm listening to these people that I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars to get advice from that this is happening." I didn't really think about the fact that, oh, maybe it's because I'm not actually trusting my own decision-making skills and I'm way too leaning on somebody else to make those decisions for me. And now, hindsight's 2020, I can look back and say, "Man, I really just, like, got really sucked into what I saw other people doing and what I thought, 'Hey, this is what people do at this level,' rather than giving myself what I needed to make healthy decisions, which is space and solitude, and, like, I need to be alone and, like, listen to my own inner knowing about these choices rather than being in a room full of people that are all, like, saying what they think is the best thing to do and, like, absorbing all of this information from other people." Again, I this is all stuff that I, like, had no idea was happening when it was happening, and I don't know if the birth chart stuff would have dramatically changed it, but I think it would have changed it substantially. Like, I think it could have been a very different experience if I had had this information before I ran into these challenges over the last few years. So another thing that was really helpful for me to have validated was how I have have to protect my energy. So it's really funny, like, I think one of the reasons I've always told myself I have to be an entrepreneur is because I cannot fathom having, like, a regular Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job. I feel like that would literally be so just awful for me, and I say that as if, like, that's a normal lifestyle for most people, working a 40-hour work week, going to an office, whatever, right? Or if I'm a dietitian, it's like going to work at a hospital. The idea of being on somebody else's schedule, having to work all day and, like, having that level of routine was so off-putting to me. I think that was the main reason I became an entrepreneur, to be frank. And I always knew this about myself, and I always thought that maybe I was just, like, a little lazy or, like, I just you just have this sense of, like, I wanna have freedom in my life, right? But now I can see from doing this birth chart analysis that my energy needs a lot of flexibility and a lot of space, and I tend to have cyclical energy. So I can go really hard on something for a bit, and then I need to be, like, totally off the clock. And it's not always consistent, right? It's like I could go hard for a few weeks and then need a few weeks off. I could go hard for a few days and then need a couple days off. But it's very cyclical and it's very much like a wave. And that means that the same activity, the same schedule, the same routine every single day is not a good fit for me. So when you grow up in this environment where routines and schedules and consistency and like that 9 to 5 work week is normalized, you start to think, well, maybe something's wrong with me. Like maybe I'm not that ambitious, or maybe I don't want to work that hard. But what my chart confirmed for me is that I actually have a really high capacity for very high impact focused bursts. One of the things that my chart says is I can get more work done in an hour than a lot of people can get done in like half a day. So I am extremely productive when I am on, and then I need to actually rest in between bursts of energy. So it's not just like, oh, I take 15 minutes to like, you know, sit on the couch or something. It's like, no, I need a week where I do not have anything on the schedule. So the problem is that most standard business models are built with the assumption of you should be able to put consistent, steady daily output into your business. So maybe that's creating content every day, maybe that's constant visibility, sales every day, always be producing, always be doing something. And that model, even though it's a fit for some people, it's not a fit for me. And that is something where even like I've mentioned this whole idea that the evergreen group model was something that didn't fit me. That's why I'm going back to the cohort and launch model, because I need like a really intense burst of energy as my sales process. And then I need to break from selling for a bit. Like the best years we've ever had in my business were the ones where I was launching. And then when I switched to this evergreen model, it was like slow decline as far as total revenue, and the profits also declined. So again, it's like I was trying to force myself into this model that didn't fit my energy type. I am not the kind of person that just works every single day and does the same thing every single day. And so for me, understanding now that I need that fluctuating energy, that wave of energy that like go hard for a few weeks and then take a break for a few weeks. Knowing that, I understand now why the cohort launch model actually was a better fit for me. And it makes me feel like, oh, I don't have to do what everybody else is saying just because they're all like, oh, nobody comes to launches anymore. Or, oh, daily sales is the thing that you need when you're a mom. Like, cool for you, but not a fit for me. So that's another thing that you can discover from your birth chart is what is your energetic architecture and like what do you need to actually support your optimal energy. Is it a very consistent daily routine where you do the same thing every day and like, you're just on a really tight schedule and it just feels very grounding to you? Or you're like me, you need to be able to just like change your plan in the middle of the day or have 2 hours off and just get off the computer, right? And so knowing what that is for you is so important because it is actually fully fit to you and not something that's just like a template you can follow. Now, another part of the birth chart that's been really fascinating to me and just like something I've been really digging into is the part of the chart that speaks directly to your public role. So, this is what you're here to be known for, how your authority is meant to show up. It can inform your career path. And for me, there's a couple different things that came up that really confirm this idea that I am here to lead through depth, not like trying to serve a lot of people with a lot of different topics. It's really go deep with a smaller number of people. I need to have standards of what's true and what's not true. And most importantly, I need to be willing to say what I believe is true and not be afraid to say it. So this is not a volume play. This is not a constant visibility. This is not a jump on trends to just get eyeballs. And this is definitely not trying to make myself as accessible or palatable to as many people as possible. It's like the exact opposite of all of that. So I have realized that because of some of the stuff that happened to me in the last few years, I was not showing up with a strong opinion. I was softening my edges. I was trying to be more palatable because I was literally told in some of these rooms that I was in that I was too much and that I needed to soften and I needed to give people a warmer experience of me before I, shared what I thought. And it is something where now I can look back and be like, "Oh, that's literally, like, the absolute wrong direction for me to be going in," and that's something that I had already been trained to do my entire life, and my entire business is predicated on the fact that I am willing to stand for something, and I am willing to say the things that nobody else will say, and I am willing to ruffle feathers, which ironically, before I got into these situations where I feel like people were putting me or pushing me in the wrong direction because of how they felt around me or because of their own experience of me that was not, they're not my people, so why do I need to care what they think about me? My entire nutrition business was built from me taking controversial stances because I believed what was true. And it doesn't mean I was accurate all the time. I totally changed my mind about certain things over time as I learned more. But I was always willing to stand for something and make statements about what I believed, even if people didn't like it. And between the experiences that I had where, like I said, people literally said I was like too much or, here's how to make yourself more likable. Like these are like literal conversations that I had in a group setting. It was very, very interesting to look back and be like, oh, that's like a little bit traumatic that I had that experience, but okay, here we go. Um, so to go from that experience of like being told you need to make people like you more and here's how to do it to realizing like, oh, trying to be likable is actually, if I want to kill my business and just run it into the ground, the goal is that I should try to be more likable. So being able to say, okay, actually, the goal is not likability. The goal is truth and standards and leading the way and being for a specific person and being okay with repelling people who are not for me. That is what my business needs to thrive. And so that gave me a lot of validation that like, oh, maybe the reason that my business also struggled to grow, even with all of this effort and investment and time and energy I was putting into it, is because I'm literally building it based on what other people think of me rather than what I think of myself. And and it's a very important realization. It's a little depressing to think like, wow, I'm so glad that I'm honestly really glad that the things happen to me. I know that sounds a little crazy, but like I feel like I can look back at those experiences and let that be a contrast for how I want to live my life moving forward. And so, it's one of these things where even though those experiences cost me a lot financially and I did not get a good, like, actual financial ROI in the short term, I can look at like, wow, that really is going to be an anchor for me moving forward to know that's how I don't want to behave in the world. And I can move towards the things that are going to help my business go in the right direction and grow and be more profitable and have a bigger impact and feel good, which is also important. And the ROI will be future, right? So it's like, as much as I can feel, frustrated and sad and angry that that was something that happened to me, I can also be very grateful that now I have that to pull from, which ironically, from my birth chart, I'm the kind of person that is supposed to lead from experience. So I can like go through all the hard stuff and then share with you guys what I learned, and you guys can like skip it all, which is good for you, right? So on top of this idea that I'm not here for everyone, I'm not meant to be likable by everybody, and that it's my truth telling and standards and just depth that I'm willing to go to that is actually what's going to be my legacy in my business. My birth chart also confirmed that my authority deepens over time. So I'm not like, get rich quick and like shoot to fame or whatever, right? Like I'm the person that slowly builds in the background. I don't jump on trends. I'm not selling based on novelty. I'm not like, going like from 0 to a million in a year. Like my growth trajectory is slow, but it's also sustainable and it just gets better and better over time. So it's built on experience, it's built on track record, and it's built on staying in my lane long enough to actually have something real to say to people and not just be like bouncing between things and like, imitating others and just sharing whatever I'm thinking about in that moment and then moving on, right? So to me, when you see other people that are like their business is just taking off and exploding, and you're like, what the heck? I've been in business for so long and it's just this like grind to keep growing. And you read something like that and it's like, oh, like that means my business is still going to be around in 10 years, 20 years, right? Versus some of these people, I've seen this before where their business just like blows up, makes a ton of money, and then 2 years later they're out of business and they're just gone. And that's not what I want. I want my stuff to have staying power. And when I read this in my chart that like my business is built to last and my leadership is built to last and it's just expanding on itself and it's just continuously growing and deepening, that was really encouraging because like I said, it can be very discouraging when you see other people having faster results even though they don't have the ethics you do, they don't have the talent you do. And that just reframed things for me pretty substantially. So it also clarified to me why a lot of the tools and strategies that I was taught recently to use to market myself just felt off. Like they just didn't feel good to me. And there's a big difference between something being difficult because it's new and something being difficult because it's just such a mismatch for you. So this is things like high frequency content, trying to talk to a lot of people, trying to do these hooks that just like go viral or whatever. It's also the kind of content where you're supposed to like dangle results in front of people, but not actually give them any sort of insight into how you help them solve their problem. Like all of this stuff that's like really popular right now, but it's honestly, I think, burning people out and they're kind of sick of seeing it. None of that ever felt good to me. And now it just really validates the fact that, oh, the way that I grow my audience, yeah, it's not as flashy and as fast and as like, rapid results as some other people, but I'm here for the long haul and the people that are going to work with me are going to appreciate that. So knowing how you're built to grow and built to run your business and built to present yourself publicly can really help make sure that you're not doing things that are out of alignment with who you are and really pulling you off track from the things that make you really unique and actually uniquely talented and uniquely skilled to help your people. And it just helps clear the noise out because you're like, people can say whatever they want. That's not for me, right? You say, they're saying this about, you know, podcasting's dead and nobody listens to podcasts anymore. And oh my gosh, Jenna Kutcher shut her podcast down. That must mean podcasts are just like not a thing anymore. But then I can look at my chart and say, actually, long form content where I'm able to just like form a thought by yapping for like 30 minutes. That is how I communicate best. That is how I get my thought leadership across the best. And I'm not going to listen to somebody else saying that nobody listens to podcasts when I know that the people who buy from me listen to this podcast, right? So knowing what's true for you can really, really help you just start to fully ignore what randos on the internet are saying about how to run your business because you just get really clear about what's right for you. And that doesn't mean you don't hire people. Like I can say, okay, yeah, if podcasting is really my main content strategy, then maybe I should invest in learning how to do it more effectively, right? So it's not about not getting help. It's about making sure you're not just jumping from strategy to strategy or jumping into things that are not a good fit for you just because somebody was really compelling as far as how they advertised it to you. Now, I did mention this before, but one of the things that I've realized from my birth chart is that I am meant to teach from personal experience, not just from theory. So I'm not just like learning a strategy and then teaching it. I am actually here to be a role model. And that means that I have to do the thing that then informs how I teach. So my authority doesn't come from just studying something and then packaging it into a curriculum. It comes from having done the thing, made the mistakes, rebuilt, and being willing to share what all of that actually looked like in a way that's very authentic and true to who I am and what my experience is like. So that means the most powerful content I can create is always going to be self-referential. So it's using my own business, my own personality, my own experience, my own highs, my own lows as the primary material of what's guiding what I talk about. That doesn't mean that I then make what I teach about what I did and how they can do it too. It just means that when I share stories, when I share insights, that using myself as the reference point to share what I learned from doing things out of alignment, that is how I'm meant to impact people the most. So this episode is a perfect example of that. I am not teaching anything about astrology. I'm not even using astrological terms right now. I am just sharing how I am using this tool and what it is that I have found when I applied it to myself and what changed as a result and what I think about what this means for the people that I'm working with. And that is a different way of approaching content creation than some of the ways that we've been taught, which is like make it about the other person, like totally make all your content about your ideal client and speak from their perspective and all of that. And it's like, okay, maybe, but also maybe speaking from your own perspective and your own experience and saying, here's what I did or here's what I learned. Like that might actually be a better fit for you. So if you've ever been told you needed to strip out your personality or your personal experience in your content, I would just say, first of all, a lot of people like to hear what you've been through and how it affects how you teach or what your perspective is. But for some of us, our personal experience is the expertise, and your chart can tell you if that is true for you. Because if it is, you're going to want to lean into that and really get more comfortable with sharing yourself as the case study, which can feel vulnerable. It can feel a little, especially like if you're having any struggles in the area that you teach in, it can feel very nerve-wracking to share that with people. But if that's part of how you are designed to have your biggest impact, then it has to happen. I already mentioned this a minute ago, but I've always known that long form audio was my favorite way of producing content. And so when I saw in my chart that it was confirmed that a podcast would be my primary marketing and messaging strategy, I kind of laughed a little because I've been podcasting since 2013. And in some ways, I feel like I just did it because it was what I saw my mentor at the time doing. And I was like, okay, let's start a podcast. 2013, very different world back then for the online business space. But I feel like I always looked at the podcast as like one form of content and not the form of content I need to focus on. So my chart clearly points to long form verbal communication as my primary modality for expressing my authority. So, not this like short, punchy content, not like a 7-second reel, not these like little quick tips, not carousels. Like, honestly, social media is not exactly the best fit for me as somebody who needs a long runway to make a point. And like, the way I make a point is by talking about it. So, I need to have the opportunity to have an extended speaking window or like just the room to talk about something so that I can develop an idea fully. And I always knew that about myself, but it was something that honestly I felt like I needed to change about myself. Like I needed to shorten things up and make it faster. And, like that was another thing I got really influenced by in the last few years that I've kind of had to de influence myself about is this idea that everything needs to be short and fast and punchy. And like, what's the least amount you can put into something to make your point? So I've like spent years now trying to train myself out of the way that I actually perform best when it comes to communicating because I thought the way I was doing it was not quote unquote the best or the most effective, right? So when I saw this on my chart and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like yeah, I know I'm like I can ramble and I can go on these tangents and I can like just talk for hours if I need to realize that that's actually a strength of mine and not something to change was so helpful. And it showed me that, hey, instead of the podcast being like one form of content that I put out, it needs to be my focus and I need to double down on it. So for me, I enjoy podcasting, but it's also the format where my thinking is able to be expressed most clearly and most deeply. And it's where I develop the deepest trust with my audience. So, you guys are listening to this. You are the ones that I connect with the best. And pretty much everybody that I've ever worked with at a high level or has bought quickly from me has told me that the podcast was what helped them get there. Now, it could be this podcast where it's like my weekly show. It could be a private podcast where it was a series on a particular topic. But when people listen to me speak, they hear me think through things in real time. They hear me share things that are really honest or vulnerable. I'm in their ear, like I'm literally in your ear right now talking to you about this stuff. And so it creates this connection that no other form of content can really create for me. And my people, you are probably not sitting at your computer listening to this show right now. You're probably driving, you're probably walking your dog, you're probably working out at the gym. You're probably washing dishes or putting laundry away, maybe cleaning your house. Maybe you are like I said, a lot of the time I'm listening to podcasts, I'm walking around the lake or driving the car somewhere, right? So you're doing other things, but you have me in your ear listening to my thoughts, listening to what I'm talking about, you know, absorbing things. You're maybe not even listening that carefully, but you're absorbing things, right? And so my ability to be with you in your day-to-day life and not have you sit down and like watch a video or read a blog post or something, like being able to be living your life while you're listening to me talk is actually a really great way for me to connect with you and to help you get to know me and get to understand my expertise better. So I think a lot of times people can kind of poo-poo podcasting because they think it's like, oh, nobody listens to long form anymore. But honestly, my buyers listen to long form and they want to hear what I think about things. They want to spend more time with me. And I just to me, it's a chart match for how I communicate, and the data points to the fact that people who listen to my podcast tend to be buyers much more frequently, and it's my favorite way to communicate. It's just the thing that I feel most comfortable doing, and I feel like it captures the true essence of me the most effectively. This does not mean everybody needs a podcast. It just means, hey, maybe long form content is something you need to explore. Maybe it's video, maybe it's long form writing. Like, I don't care what it is, but if there's a specific way that you are best designed to communicate, like you need to lean into that and not just force yourself into somebody else's model. If you're a long form girly like me, like maybe Instagram or TikTok is not the best way for you to grow your audience. Doesn't mean don't use it. It just means you need to be looking at long form as an alternative. And I really think understanding that gives you this sense of clarity on what you should focus on, and you don't just get tossed around by all the different opinions about what the best way to attract your clients are. Now, for me, on top of the verbal communication, I am also a relationship and connection based seller. So most of the people I work with found me either through word of mouth or again, they listened to something that I was talking in a long form way. So maybe it's a podcast interview, maybe it's my podcast, like so many different ways that somebody can come across me. And a lot of times there's a level of relationship that gets built over time with that exposure versus somebody buying straight off a Facebook ad or something, right? So I my chart says that I need relationships to grow my business, whether that's network, whether that's, getting on other people's podcasts, whether that's just connecting with people. And it's not in a cold way, it's in a warm, true relationship way. So that's why things like tons of ad spend for me on cold ads doesn't work as well. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't use ads and I have a lot of opinions about ads. My husband runs ads for us and my clients and, so we like ads in this family. But I am not the kind of person that can just like show up in somebody's feed and get them to buy from me within, 10 seconds, right? So I need to have a content and marketing infrastructure that allows me to connect with people in a deeper way. It also means that I like to get to know my clients. It means that I like to have relationships with the people that I work with. So instead of just trying to like scale myself out of my business, I actually need to be in my business and having these conversations with people, whether it's in the sales process or in the delivery or wherever I can be talking to people, because my relationships are what help grow my business. And so, yeah, there's people who are genuinely built to grow through running cold ads to somebody that they don't know, that like they sell something that the person wants and the person buys it and they don't even know who they're buying from. Great. That's not me. I'm built to grow through my warm network. And so focusing energy and time and attention on that network is very, very important to me. And that's another part of the birth chart that you can look into to say, okay, like, is cold selling off an ad even the right fit for me? Or do I need a sales process that has higher touch points? Now, another thing I learned, this is like, I don't know how long this episode's going to get, but there's a lot of stuff I learned. Another thing I learned was something that I never really thought about, but it makes a lot of sense just when I'm looking back on my experience of life and becoming an entrepreneur and some of the things that I've experienced as an entrepreneur. For some people, financial uncertainty is stressful, but they can deal with it because, they're able to handle those ups and downs, unpredictable revenue. Like money doesn't necessarily like destabilize or stabilize them as much as some other people. For me, what I learned from my chart is that a lot of who I am and how I see myself is reflected in how I am producing financially. Now I'm very cautious about this because it's like I'm not saying my worth is in how much money I make, but that is my like how much money I'm able to create is part of what gives me a sense of the value that I'm bringing to the world. So if my finances are negatively impacted by choices, it does affect my sense of self within my business probably more than other people would. So that's something that knowing that about myself, it helps me make sure I am thinking through financial decisions in a different way. It makes me realize like, hey, I'm not built to just take these like massive leaps of faith financially. Like maybe I need to be a little bit more stable financially. And then also the other thing that this points to is the fact that the amount that I charge also reflects what I think about myself. And it's not the like charge what you're worth perspective. It's more my willingness to raise my prices is a direct reflection of how bought in I am to my own work. How I show up in sales conversations, how I communicate the value of what I'm doing, like that feels very tied to my identity. And so the more I work on myself and my confidence and my belief in what I produce and the value that it brings, the more that will actually reflect in the financial outcome for me. So it makes a lot of sense for why I became an entrepreneur because it's like I need my money to be a like 3D reflection of how much I'm showing up as myself and bringing value to the world. And me making a lot of money actually helps me operate at my best and helps me put out more value into the world. So it's not like me paying myself well is not just me being greedy or like wanting nice stuff. Like, yes, I like nice stuff. Most people like nice stuff, right? But it's not making more money is not even about possessions for me. It's about like feeling like I am fully expressing my true value and the way that I can serve the world, and the money is, like, how that gets measured. I don't know how to explain that super well, but it's like if if I'm in, like, a volatile money state, it feels more tied to my identity than maybe other people would, and I think there's, like, pros and cons here, and there's a shadow side to this, but it is something where to me, that's why I've always been drawn to the higher ticket stuff. That's why I've been drawn to charging an amount of money that other people think is insane for my time because it just like if I undercharge, it's like it's me saying that I don't value myself in a very direct way. And so to me, it's like I can see the value of me standing firm in my prices even more than what other people might experience, where other people might be like more motivated to be accessible or to be like, I want this to be something that more people can pay for. And for me, that is a direct ding to my self image if I lower my prices to be more accessible. Right. So, anyway, just something interesting. I'm still exploring more about that. But to me, it just really gives me a lot of understanding of why high ticket is so my thing and how the more I charge for my stuff, the more I feel like I'm really bringing my true value to a coaching relationship. So I want to talk a little bit about how all of this shows up in my client work and how this is relevant to you because the whole purpose of this episode, yes, it's my birthday today as of this episode coming out, but I I am going to be using this tool so much more because it just amplifies a gift that I already have. Now, this is something I also saw on my chart, which is really cool. I always knew this about myself that I just like get a read on people really quickly, and I think for a long time it felt like I was being judgmental or like you know how people are like, "Oh, don't judge a book by its cover," and like give people a chance to, you know, for you to get to know them and stuff. And like that advice I get it, it's, like, coming from a good place, but for me, it makes me so distrusting of my own intuition about things, and I am the kind of person that can see through people instantly, pretty much. I mean, like, yes, I take time to get to know people more and more, but, like, when I get introduced to somebody or when I meet them or when I start talking to them, I get, like, an instant read on them, and it's very it's very hard for me to ignore that because generally it's very accurate. And the more I get to know someone, the more that that read is confirmed, which is why I think for me, like I knew I was going to get married to my husband by our fourth phone call. Like I just knew, and people thought I was insane. But I was like, no, I just know. And I have a very awesome, very happy marriage, right? So there's a few specific placements in my birth chart, things like Pluto and Scorpio in the eighth house, the moon in the eighth house. There's like a variety of different things. Basically, it describes a person who's wired to operate below the surface of what people present. So somebody can like I can meet somebody and there can be like what they're presenting on the outside, but I have this intuitive gift where I can actually like pick up on what's underneath the surface. And I don't think I realized how strong that gift was. I always like knew I had it, but I was almost like ignoring it because I was like, I need to actually like get data on people and ask them questions and, you know, get to know them. And all of that is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was really downplaying how much of a gift this is. And so having these birth charts to really like literally it's like I feel like I'm reading what my brain already told me about somebody on paper and it's the weirdest experience. So I think this is one of the reasons why I love one-on-one coaching so much and why I'm such an excellent one-on-one coach is because like I get to know my clients at such a deep level so quickly that I can really guide them in a way that is truly a fit for who they are and not just like surface level or what they're saying to me. It really helps to have this when I'm working with clients. Even I can do this in a group too, but it's faster and easier when it's a one-on-one conversation. And so being able to look at these charts and be like, "Oh my gosh, that person's chart is like literally exactly what I thought about them." And like even things that whether it's gifts or shadow sides or whatever, it's just the weirdest experience for me, and so this has really been one of the most clarifying things about this whole process is that my ability to read people accurately is not just like this vague intuition or this little like, oh, I just have this sense about somebody. It's like I have this specific skill that's been part of my wiring from the time I was born where I just know things about people and I understand things about people that I don't even know how I know it. And so when I work with people one on one, especially, what you're getting is not just a framework or a process, it's that deeper read that I can do for you. It's that ability to see what's actually true about you and about your business and about your life underneath what you're presenting or even what you know about yourself and incorporate that into the decisions you're making moving forward so that you're able to see the complete picture and match it to who you are and not just like be blindly following somebody else's game plan for how to grow your business. So before I got into this birth chart stuff, I mean, this is all just like a natural skill that I have that I didn't even have words for. And like, I don't even think I fully was valuing it the way that I really should be valuing it moving forward. And I will be valuing it moving forward. But now having these birth charts to like actually dig into to go deeper and have language around that I feel like I can actually more clearly share my insights for people has been so freaking valuable. I can't even tell you. I have been sharing these birth chart summaries with clients and like the number of people who have said that the chart made them or the reading made them cry. And I'm not doing astrology readings. Like I'm not like reading it myself and doing this like, astrology whatever process. It's literally just taking that chart information and asking questions that I would normally ask of the client themselves or like if I want to get to know somebody better, I have a lot of things I want to know and being able to do that with Claude, with the person's birth chart, and then create this summary of how this reflects in their business and how this, affects their growth trajectory and how they can really use their strengths in a way that's going to really help them shine in their full capacity. Like I'm telling you, people have literally been like, I cannot believe how accurate this is. This made me cry. Like it's really, really fun for me. And so, again, it's like, I know that I have the gift internally to be able to do this, but the language is not always there, and it's almost like I have to really trust my gut instinct to say like, this is where I feel like this is," but do I like, I think I'm really learning how to trust myself more in terms of believing that my read on somebody is true, and just being able to look at these birth charts and be like, "Oh, I am accurately reading that about somebody," that has just really helped me grow a ton in my confidence that I have this skill for reading people accurately and that I am good at this and I am like uniquely good at this and I'm really designed and built for this. And so for me, it's just been very, very validating and confirming that this is not just like something that, I'm a judgmental person and I just like make snap judgments about people. It's no, I actually can like see through them when I meet them. And luckily for the people I work with, I usually see good things, right? I'm like, oh, they're really great at this. And this is what they bring to the world. And this is a really cool perspective. And this is how you communicate. And, this is the way that, it's people want to hear you talk about this kind of stuff. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff I see in my clients. And it helps them really own who they are and how they are really meant to show up in a way that is fully themselves and is really able to strip away those things that like whether it's trauma or like bad experiences or teachers or mentors or friends or whoever said that like don't don't be like that because nobody likes that. Like that's the kind of thing that I'm really helping people strip away because a lot of times the things that some people think is not good about you or like needs to be controlled is actually the thing that is going to make you a ton of money and help you have the biggest impact possible for the people you're here to serve. So, all of that to say, I am just so I've just been so excited about the direction that my business is going in and being able to look at these birth charts as like just another tool in my toolkit for helping people, whether that's in a one-on-one capacity or in a group setting, because it is something I've brought into our Foundry program for helping people align their business choices to who they are at their best. I am just like so freaking stoked about what this means for the future of my business and how I can help people even more than I was able to before because my gifting it's difficult if not impossible to scale. And I feel like with this birth chart analysis process, the more I can develop tools and resources and things that people can use in their own decision-making process, the more that my internal gift of being able to read people accurately can actually be scaled and be transferred to somebody else so that they can really get to know themselves at a deep level and use that understanding to run their business effectively. So I know I've been all over the place. Like I said, I've just been like utterly amazed by the things I've learned, even in a very short period of time about this birth chart analysis stuff. I don't know exactly where I'm going from here because I don't see myself as being someone who's going to get like super into like astrology as a topic. I also, as I mentioned before, I think trying to use astrology to predict what's going to happen is really not wise. And from a Christian perspective, I think the danger that can be run into with this tool is we can start to consult the tool more than consult God. And I'm very mindful of, my tendency to do that as somebody who wants fast answers and wants to move quickly. That is a tendency I need to be very mindful of. But I am just so excited that there is an opportunity to really get into a person's true nature and true wiring in a way that bypasses all of their cultural conditioning and their bad experiences and their trauma, and just like really get to the meat of like what are you uniquely skilled at, and what does the world need from you? And I really believe in a coaching, consulting, expert business. The thing that you are here to do is the thing that you're here to monetize as a business owner. Like if you are able to make money from being the most you and like being in your highest like version of you and your most serving the world version of you, like that is what's going to help you make the most amount of money in your business. And I am just really, really stoked about this opportunity to keep digging into this and keep sharing this with my clients and to keep helping them develop their awareness of who they are and what they're here to do. So all of this is really supposed to help you start thinking more about how to know yourself better and how specifically your birthday can help you know yourself better. Because when your business model doesn't fit your design, you're not always going to like know that that's a fit problem. You often will experience it as a personal failure because you're comparing yourself to other people who do not have your personality. So you'll tell yourself, I'm not consistent enough. I'm not disciplined enough. I don't wake up early enough. I'm too distracted. I'm too multi-passionate. All the things that you tell yourself because so and so told you, well, if you want to be successful, you got to wake up at 5 a.m. You got to do your 1 hour of sales activities. You got to blah, 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 like all the things. And meanwhile, like I know my personality wiring is like, I'm really built for like a lot of rest and I need a lot of space and I need to not have super strict routines. Right. And so it's so easy to think that there's something wrong with you when the reality is it's the model that's wrong. It's the strategy that's wrong. And it doesn't mean it's bad for everybody, it just means it's bad for you. So if you're not feeling like your business is an extension of who you are and it feels like it's this constant grind to run it, whether it's how you serve your clients, whether it's how you sell, whether it's the content creation strategy. If it feels like you're constantly working against your own wiring, that's something to pay attention to. And this birth chart thing is one really accurate tool for being able to start to uncover what is it about the model that you're operating in that is not a fit, so you can change it and create it so that it is a fit for you, so that you're working with your momentum instead of against it. Because honestly, like so much of what I went through in the last few years was me outsourcing my intuition and my judgment to people that I thought knew better than me because they were making more money than me and they were very confident in what they were sharing. And it took me a few years of a lot of struggle, a lot of expense, a lot of, money coming in that then went out somewhere else. And it was like this really frustrating experience of like, I know how talented I am. I know how good I am at this. Not to sound stuck up, but I'm like, I know I'm better than most of these people at this. Like, why are these people making so much more money than me? And unfortunately, my MO was to be like, success leaves clues. Let's see what they're doing. And maybe if I do what they're doing, it'll, I know I'm good at things. I can make this work. And all it did was drive me more off track, cost me more money, and not give me any tangible ROI from that actual, like, in the moment experience. And if that sounds familiar to you, that is exactly what everything I'm doing moving forward is meant to help solve. So, after this episode, I want you to sit with a few questions. One is, am I actually making decisions the way I am wired to make them? Or am I using a decision making process that doesn't fit me and then wondering why I keep second guessing myself? You can also ask, does my business structure actually match my energy? Or am I trying to sustain a routine or a schedule that assumes that I'm a fundamentally different kind of person, right? Like, I am not built for the same thing every day. And if you ask me to have the same schedule every day, I will lose my mind. So, maybe you're the same way as me. What kind of leadership am I actually here to step into? And am I actually leading from my version of leadership, or am I trying to force myself into somebody else's version of leadership? Am I in the right content modality? Like, am I a long form content creator? Is like podcasting or writing blogs or Substack or something like, are those things a better fit for me? Or am I forcing myself into a content strategy like short form social media because that's what everyone says is what works and what's easy and what's trending, even though I'm totally ignoring the format I'm really meant to build trust in is something long form. How am I designed to attract clients? Like, is a cold DM strategy something that's a good fit for me and my energy? Or does it make me feel like I'm going to vomit every time I reach out to a stranger that I have no connection with, right? Maybe you're the kind of person that really needs that relationship built before you have a conversation. So is the strategy that you're using working with or against that wiring for you? Does your revenue model give you what you actually need to operate at your best? I operate best with a smaller number of high paying clients. Now, that doesn't mean I can't sell other things, but my baseline income, most of my income this year especially, is coming from high paying one on one clients. And that, like, if I had to get rid of all my other offers and just focus on one thing, it would be high ticket 101. I love it. It stabilizes me, it lets me go deep, it lets me get to know my clients, lets me be really invested in their results, and that is a full match for my personality, and for me to make it work, I have to charge a lot of money because I can't work with tons of clients, and I have a family, and energetically, I need space, and so I am here for the people who value what I have to offer and are willing to pay decent amount of money for it and make it so that I can make a really good living and take care of myself with just a few clients at a time. I know that about myself. That's what informs my pricing. It's what informs my client selection. It informs my offer design, like all those things. Now, the point is not to just blow up your whole business and rebuild the entire thing from scratch based on your birth chart, although you are absolutely permitted to do that if that's how you want to do things. The point is really just to get honest about where the friction is and where the misalignment is in the business so that you can make the necessary changes so that the business actually is built for you. And for some people, it's just a few tweaks. It doesn't have to necessarily be starting from scratch like the way that I basically am. It doesn't mean that you may not want to start from scratch, but you need to know what's out of alignment so that you actually know how much rebuilding needs to happen. So that's step one, is really just assessing everything, understanding the alignment, and then moving forward from there. Like I said, I'm 39 today. I'm going to be 40 soon. It feels so weird. I'm like, I do not feel like I'm going to be 40. I know there's nothing weird about 40, but I don't know. I was talking with one of my clients today. She works with women over 40. And there's just this thing of like, you're over the hill. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I still feel so young. I have babies. Like, I might have more babies. I don't feel like I'm 40, but 39, my last year of my 30s. This is a year that I really feel very strongly is going to be a very transformative year for me. And I have spent decades studying psychology, marketing, business strategy, and then, applied learning to offer design, messaging, positioning, all the things that have to happen when you're actually running a business. I've had a business for my own business for 12 years now, and I've been working in some form of online business for like 15 years now. I have spent years studying and implementing this stuff. And what this year has clarified for me is that the missing piece for most of us is not just, I need more strategy. The missing piece is having a really precise understanding of who I am and who the strategy needs to be built for. and knowing how to pick the right strategy because it's aligned with you, not just because somebody sold it to you really effectively. The most sophisticated business model in the world will only work for the person it's a fit for. So I don't care how much money somebody else is making with their business. If it's not a fit for my wiring, it's not going to work. And this whole concept is built around my belief that your business should feel as good as it performs. So you should make a lot of money and you should love what you do. That doesn't mean you love every minute of it, but overall, you should be like, I cannot imagine myself doing anything else because I love it and I make great money doing it. And if it's not feeling that way, it's probably not a discipline problem or an effort problem or a commitment problem. It's probably an alignment problem. So, what I encourage you to do is go put your birthday information into, like I said, AstroSeek or AstroChart. I'll put the links in the show notes. You just need your birth date, your exact birth time, as accurate as you can be, your location that you were born. It's free. You don't have to pay anything to get this information. And then put it into, I like Claude, but you can use ChatGPT and just start asking it questions about what patterns do you see? Like, what would you think about me as an individual based on this information? Now, you don't have to go down every single rabbit hole because there's a lot of information and it can go in so many different directions, but at least ask it, like, what does your chart say about how you make decisions best? What kind of, design do you need in your personal life to support your energy? What kind of business is a really good model for you? Like, you can just ask it all these questions and just see what comes up and see how it feels, right? I'm not saying, oh, this is going to be like telling your future and you need to do everything that it says, but I think it can be really interesting to see what it's saying and reflect back about, does this feel true? Do I see this in myself? Because what I've experienced dozens of times at this point with clients is, oh my gosh, I already knew this, but this really just clarifies it for me. And now I can see why some of these choices haven't worked well for me. So that's definitely what I recommend you doing after this episode is up. We also do have our CEO type quiz. So the CEO type quiz can help you figure out how you make decisions in business and what your priorities are so that your business is structured in a way that matches your CEO type and is actually designed to grow at the pace that is appropriate for you. Being able to decide, do I make fast decisions? Do I make slow decisions? Do I need space? Do I need time? Or do I need momentum? Like, all of those things can help you start to understand yourself more. And then when you combine that with the birth chart, you're going to just have so much rich information about what your business model needs to be for you to be maximally successful. I'll link to the astrology charts that I like as data to pull for the analysis, and then I'll link to the CEO type quiz. If you want to take that quiz and see what your results say about your wiring as a business owner. And as of today, for the day that I'm recording this, I do have a spot open for a one-on-one advisory client. So my one-on-one advisory program is for the coach, expert, or practitioner that's at least at, I'd say, a minimum of 15K months, really kind of like in that 200 to 500K range in their business. And it feels like the more you do, the less money you make. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you make less sales. It just means you get to keep less, or you're not actually keeping any more. You're just working harder. So you're trying strategies, you're implementing things, you're, investing in coaches, you're working on your mindset, you're doing all the stuff you were taught, and you're not getting the breakthrough in your sales, in your profit, in how you feel in your business. And you're ready for somebody who's actually going to look at the complete picture for you and go to that level of depth that really helps you understand how you're wired and how you are best built to run your business. And then we can look strategically at each functional part of your business and say, is this actually a match for you? And if it's not, what needs to change? Because sometimes it's the actual structure, the boundaries, the design of the business. Sometimes it's, how are you expressing yourself? Who are you talking to? Are you like absorbing all the energy of all these jerks on the internet that have opinions that you just need to like figure out how to block out because you're like very sensitive? There's so many things that can inform why your business is not growing the way that you want it to grow. And the combination of my skill set of being able to like just know that about people, plus my ability to dig into this birth chart stuff and match it to the business model is going to completely transform your business. So if that sounds like what you're looking for somebody who's going to go deep, get to know you, really understand what makes you tick and construct your business around it and be with you for long enough for it to actually give you results and they don't just like abandon you like right after, learning what you need to do, then the advisory is for you. So the link is in the show notes to apply for that. I do have, I think like 1 or 2 spots open. I don't want to say two because I have a sales call in the next couple days, so we'll see. But I'm pretty sure I have at least 1 spot open for the advisory. And if this is calling to you, then I would love to work with you. Like I said, my podcast listeners are my best clients. And so the fact that you're still here listening tells me that you would be an excellent client to work with. And I would love to help you create your business to not only make you tons of money, but also to support the life that you want. Because honestly, no amount of money is worth sacrificing your family, your friends, your hobbies, your self-care, your mental health, all the things that make you a complete person. Your business needs to support that while also making a great income. So that's what I'm here to help you with. I would love to see your application come through. Either way, I hope that this was interesting to you to learn a little bit about birth chart stuff, and happy birthday to me. I'm happy to spend a little time with you today on my special day. And I'll look forward to seeing you here next week on the Nourished CEO podcast. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. And if this episode got you thinking about how you're actually wired to run your business, your next step is to take the CEO type quiz. Because here's the thing, most of the business advice out there was built for someone specific. And if that someone isn't you, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how many strategies you implement. It's just never going to feel right, and it's never going to work as well as it should. Knowing your CEO type changes all of that. After you take the quiz, your results page will walk you through your natural strengths, your biggest blind spots, and a concrete game plan for your offers, messaging, sales, and even your calendar, all built around how you actually think and lead. Not generic advice, your specific direction. It takes about 5 minutes and it's completely free. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to lauraschoenfeld.com/quiz. And if you already know your type and this episode resonated with you, share the quiz with someone else who needs it. The right framework at the right time can completely change how someone sees their business. And honestly, that's exactly why I made this. All right, I'll see you next time on the Nourished CEO podcast.